You put Blanchfield Santos on the main card here ahead of...
perfect. That's a perfect spot for it. That's a perfect
ahead of every single fight, even including the co-main. I put that fight ahead of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like that'd be a great one to have there. You could have it, slot it in there, just ahead of Manal Cap versus this Jabroni. Do you know what I mean? Like freshen it up a bit, get something interesting. Get a contender fight in there. Like this is the thing, is like you can have contender fights for people who aren't from like that country. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that Manal Cap was supposed to fight Kai Kara France, and that would have been perfect, whatever else. But remember when they had Gaethje versus Fiziev in London? Like, you know, it's just like they got no link to London. They got no link to the fans there. But the fans ate it up because it was like an intense, important fight. That's what you want in these spots. And like Blanchfield Santos would have been absolutely perfect for that. And I don't know, it's just, we were talking before we recorded, but like my interest is like, it's so low. It's so low. I mean, you know, I've watched a bit of PFL this year and I can't get into it in the same way. It's just the lack of elbows, man. They just don't elbow each other. I've got to say, I'm not a big fan of the tournament setup for everyone. I'm okay with I quite like the Bellator way, which is the Grand Prix across like a 14 to 18 month period. I much prefer that. Picking a division, we're going to have a Grand Prix, perfect. Could even do 2 in a year for 2 divisions, perfect. I don't love the tournament setup. I don't think it gets the best out of people. 4 or 5 fights in an 8-month period, that's barbaric. You know, I just don't think you're not going to get the best out of people that way. And I think that when the PFL does buy up Bellator, which it seems that they're going to do, and they get all that talent in there, drop the tournaments and take the Grand Prix. Do the Grand Prix. That's the better system. I think you probably agree with me in that regard.
I need to see it implemented really by a organisation that has the talent to generate the interest, you know?
Which I think the PFL will have if they buy Bellator.
Yeah. It's a definite. It's the first chance for anybody to contend with the UFC, you know, in a very long time, in the last 15 years or so. So... yeah, I obviously would love to see that. It looks like you're looking for any way out of the UFC here.
It's not that. I wish that the UFC could get away from being the UFC, if that makes sense. Like they're on such cruise control, and yeah, it's because they're ahead of everyone, and yeah, they're Coca-Cola, but they need a Pepsi to challenge them a little bit, to take some talent. You see it in wrestling at the moment. Like, you got WWE, you got AEW. AEW can pay WWE money for people. Like, they can do that. No one's there to challenge UFC with payments, but we're seeing it now with PFL, giving Francis a nice big contract.
Yeah, am I saying it? Did I rewrite that PFL have some sort of affiliation with Saudi Arabia now?
Yes, the Saudi Public Investment Fund have invested $100 million into the PFL. I hope a part of that $100 million is drop the tournaments. You know, like, you can have the $1 million prize at the end, but just do it at the end of a Grand Prix. Like, that makes much more sense to me.
I mean, it sounds like some serious competition is in the making. That's only good for fans. Again, slight concern with it though, Joe, is, you know, we want to see the best fights. If you've got talent being sucked up and bidded for between 2 rival organizations, you know, there is a risk of that devolving into, you know, like prolonged negotiations and cherry picking of fights and, you know, more kind of prize fighter matchups rather than the best fighting the best. I guess I just have to say the UFC, it's been dropping the ball, and I, for one, you clearly, and I think a lot of other fans out there, they're ready for someone to come in and challenge, even at the risk of harming the sport in the short term for what it could represent in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just, I think that the UFC and actually MMA in general, it's lost a lot of fans. Like, it just doesn't have the same cultural cachet as it did 10 years ago. Conor with Ronda and all that, like that sort of level of superstar. Like, I know that they want Sean O'Malley to be that, but like, I just not feeling that's going to be the same just yet. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I think about the presentation a lot, and I'm like, I just want to skip. Like, I think there needs to be a massive clear out. I'm talking just let Rogan go. Do you know what I mean? Just like he doesn't want to be there. Like he doesn't do research for the fights, right? That he's watching. He doesn't even watch the fights that he's watching. Like when he was talking about Gaethje Poirier, he's like, Gaethje didn't throw a single high kick in that whole. That was the only one he threw. It's just like he threw like 4 before that, and he's just like, what are you watching? You're not even watching the fight. You know, I think it needs a total redo. I think in terms of how they show it, and I know this is controversial. Really dislike the Bruce Buffer intros. Like I hate them.
You want to do? Oh my god! You want to do away with the hallmarks of the UFC brand? Joe Rogan, Bruce Buffer. I think you were commenting that you didn't like the intro music.
Face the Pain. Face the Pain. God, no! That should have been gone a decade ago, and that would have been too late. Like do you know what it feels? It actually feels a bit chintzy and a bit cheap. Like it feels kind of plasticky. You know, like when I watch the boxing, it's got like a prestige to it. Do you know what I mean? There's an ingrained prestigious quality to it. And I know that like, okay, we don't want to be that because we want to be our own thing and whatever else. And I get that, that's fine. But like, it'd be nice if four times a year, you know, they talk about their big cards, the Madison Square Garden one, the International Fight Week, you know, when they go to certain places, like the Abu Dhabi cards, like, you know, these are our sort of like big prestige cards. For those like 3-4 cards a year, why not actually present it in a different way? Have a stage where they come out instead of just walking through the crowd. Do you know what I mean? Like actually sell them as like a big, different thing. Like I don't know. Just music wise, it just feels like it's some sleepwalking mode and.
To me, that's all related to the ESPN deal and the volume of events, the lack of need to attract pay-per-views to build stars, which seems to have emerged, the reluctance to create brands that can rival their own, stars who can hold them to ransom. I do get the feeling that these big events, the Abu Dhabi card, the Madison Square Garden card, UFC London, and well, it seems going down under now as well. With the right fan base and the right names on the card, they can create moments. It's just the volume of dirge in between those events that's the big issue for me. I don't know that they do enough for me to distinguish the stars walkout, the big event feel from the, from the early entrance to a card.
Yeah,
when the lights dim and they have the longer intro, and sometimes they'll mix in Izzy doing his,
a bit more production to his. But that's the thing, though.
Conor McGregor and Sinead O'Connor.
Of course, that was amazing. Doesn't that prove my point, though? Of just like if they do it 4 times a year, they're like, we're going to give you.
But they do it. They do it. Isn't the problem? Isn't the problem
Conor and
that there's
Sinead,
so much in between?
What year was that?
It must be 2016,
2017. Before that, it was 2014 or 15, wasn't it?
I don't think Conor McGregor existed as a name until 2014. Yeah,
2015. I'm just saying, man.
But the larger problem, isn't it like the quality that we're getting? The quality of the matchups?
Yeah, on like a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, yeah, the quality is poor.
And the arena?
What, you mean the venues?
I mean, yeah, I do mean
the
venues.
Apex, yeah.
I mean, particularly the Apex, but they also seem to pick a lot of stadiums, with very poor acoustics, and,
they pick arenas, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I would, in a way, I'd almost like it if they did one stadium show a year.
That'd be interesting.
I went to Wembley for AEW All In, the wrestling. They had there 81,000 people there, and it was incredible. The atmosphere was electric. The production was superb. Like, I was up on the top tier, but I was in like the 3rd row, so I was towards the front, so I could see everything. Clearly, I had a great view and all that. And they say like, oh well, it's the view isn't as good at a stadium or not. It's just like you're not really there for the view. You're there for the atmosphere at a certain stage when you get into And it's just like, you got the guys in top deck who are all drunk, yeah, and they're all like, they're just making the noise, and that's where the atmosphere comes down from there, and then everyone else gets swallowed into it. I don't know how you watch those stadium shows, whether it's WrestleMania or AEW at Wembley Stadium, and not go like, I wouldn't mind a piece of that. Can you imagine Conor McGregor coming out in a massive stage?
It's always been the occasion, anyway, for the actual viewer experience live. It's not, you have a better experience watching any of these sports on TV.
Absolutely.
I think we all know that. Yeah, it's stale. It needs to change.